Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I'm Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. Hey, there are many out there who are saying we are in the midst of a constitutional crisis, and I actually agree. We are in the midst of a constitutional crisis. Is it because we have a bunch of unelected bureaucrats running around slashing government spending? No, actually, that's not it. And as a matter of fact, there's been other unelected government officials that have affected large portions of our life too. And I didn't hear anyone complaining about it then. No, actually what I'm talking about is I'm talking about renegade district court judges around the United States district courts that are just dropping nationwide injunctions like they're going out of style. And this has a real opportunity to affect this particular administration's agenda. So today, let's get educated on it and let's talk about the real constitutional crisis. Nationwide injunctions which will stop the Trump agenda. Okay, America, we're talking about nationwide injunctions that are being issued by district courts. Now, just so you understand, the lowest level of the United States court system is the United States District Court. Some states, Hawaii, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, states like that, they got one district covers the whole state. My state has actually two districts. There's the Western District of Washington and the Eastern District of Washington. And obviously, when you get into much larger states such as California, Texas, and so forth, you're going to have multiple districts inside that state. So what you're basically saying is that a judge whose jurisdiction might only cover a portion of a state is actually going to issue a nationwide injunction that would affect everybody inside the United States. Do they have the authority to do that? Why do we bring this up? Well, you guys may or may not know this, but during the first 4 years that President Trump was in office, he had 64 nationwide injunctions issued against him from various district courts. And oh, by the way, a very short time into his now second term in office, he has already had 14 nationwide injunctions issued against his policies by district court judges. And of course, many of them are coming from some of the usual suspects. In this instance, lately, it has been Maryland, it has been Massachusetts, and it's been the People's Republic of Washington. But does a district court judge have the legal authority to issue a nationwide injunction? Interesting question, and one which the United States Supreme Court has never answered, but they might be forced to answer that in the very near future. Now, there is at least two current Supreme Court justices who have weighed in concurring opinions about cases which originated out of nationwide injunctions. Justice Thomas, in the matter of Trump v. Hawaii, wrote, "I'm skeptical that district courts have the authority to enter universal injunctions." And then Justice Gorsuch, in a concurring opinion in Department of Homeland Security versus New York, was quoted as stating, "Injunctions that direct how the defendant must act towards persons who are not parties to the case raise serious questions about the scope of court's equitable powers under Article 3 because the court only has jurisdiction to redress the injuries sustained by a particular plaintiff in a particular lawsuit." And back in 2018, then Attorney General Jeff Sessions, in the National Review about these district courts that were dropping nationwide injunctions, and he was quoted as saying, "Nationwide injunctions mean that each of the more than 600 federal judges in the United States can freeze a law or regulation throughout the country, regardless of whether the other 599 disagree." So I know right now, for many of you who are big fans of the Trump agenda, and you see these nationwide injunctions being thrown up left and right, and trust me, these injunctions could seriously derail the Trump agenda, and you need to understand the seriousness of it. There are many who also support this, and you might find yourself agreeing with part of this. For example, there are many law review articles that talk about the broad equitable powers of an Article 3 branch of government, namely a court, and the importance of being able to redress injuries to non-parties to the suit, but that are coming from the same action. Probably as a shock to no one, the Ninth Circuit has already once ruled that nationwide injunctions are totally appropriate from district courts in the immigration context, And another opinion out of the Ninth Circuit actually states that the APA mandates that as a remedy. Not too sure about that, but that's where the Ninth Circuit comes on this. And then the Fifth Circuit, a circuit that we oftentimes really appreciate in the matter of Texas versus the United States, has also okayed the use of national injunctions from a district court. And then let us remember, for those of you who routinely geek out on this channel, that both the pistol brace and the force reset trigger were ultimately what? That's right, nationally enjoined by a district court. And then there are some that just say, hey, listen, the ability of a district court to impose a nationwide injunction ensures uniformity. But the problem is that while we may have designed the nationwide injunction to be a shield, it is unfortunately being used as a sword. Now, the abuse that we're beginning to see from the district courts on this level is not that new. As a matter of fact, in 2017 and again in 2018, significant pieces of federal legislation were proposed that would have limited the ability of federal district courts to issue nationwide injunctions. Unfortunately, neither of those pieces of legislation really got off the ground. So, of course, that gets us to the $64,000 question. What can we do about it? Well, we can appeal, but we know how long that's going to take. And understand, this is a one-term president. He's got 4 years. You get a nationwide injunction, and then you let that thing ricochet around in the appellate system for 2-3 years. By the time the case is resolved, even if it's resolved in the president's favor, his time in office is up. What else can be done? Well, lately there's been a lot of discussion about impeaching judges. Can federal judges be impeached? Technically, yes. What is the probability of it? It's about as good as you and I going outside and throwing rocks at the moon. Because you see, an impeachment of a federal judge works just like any other elected officer, which means that they must be impeached. Articles of impeachment must be filed by the House of Representatives, and that only requires a simple majority vote. But once the articles of impeachment have been drafted, they then go to the Senate, and the Senate conducts a trial. And in order for a conviction to be entered, 2/3 of the senators have to vote in favor of impeachment. Listen, since 1803, only 15 judges have been impeached, and of those, only 8 were actually convicted by the Senate. And then here's the big thing, is even though it's not written in law or set in stone anywhere, there is a very sharp policy which suggests that judges shall not be impeached merely for making terrible decisions. Now, much of this comes from the attempted impeachment of Justice Samuel Chase in 1804, where actually the party who wanted him impeached had a supermajority, and so the numbers were mathematically there to successfully impeach Justice Chase. However, he was not impeached. And he was not impeached because he was not brought up for impeachment because of misconduct or acts that were demeaning of the profession of being on the bench or anything of that nature. No, he was simply issuing a bunch of terrible rulings. And yet, the party who most would have wanted him off the bench did not impeach him. Former Chief Justice Rehnquist actually wrote a book about judicial impeachment wherein he stated, "Judicial acts, their rulings from the bench, would not be a basis for removal from office by impeachment and conviction." So understand, America, that we are in the midst of a real constitutional crisis, but that constitutional crisis is renegade, politically active judges at the district court level issuing nationwide injunctions. And also understand, America, that if you support the Trump agenda, nothing could more easily derail the entire agenda than this exact occurrence, a nationwide injunction by a singular judge in one district. Now, here's the problem. Right now, there is no Supreme Court precedent that says that that's improper. And unless one of these cases actually makes it to the United States Supreme Court, which is clearly going to be a tact of this particular Department of Justice, well, then this is going to continue. And if you think that we can just start impeaching these judges, well, you're fooling yourself, because by design, impeachment is a very difficult process. And when you couple that with the fact that the votes aren't there and the policy behind impeachment does not favor impeaching judges just for making terrible decisions, well, it's really a non-starter, isn't it? That's why I think you ought to carefully watch cases such as like Maryland versus Department of Agriculture or Flag Incorporated v. Trump, Why? Because these are a couple of cases where some district court judge decided that they're just going to halt part of the Trump agenda on a nationwide level. Obviously, these are the types of cases that we will likely see the Department of Justice try to accelerate through the appellate process. Okay, America, if you got any questions about this or anything else related to what's left of our rights, and sometimes we have to question what that is, you should know how to get a hold of Washington gun law by now, but if you don't, that's okay. That information, it's down there in the description box. If you got an idea for a video we should be doing around here, click on that link right there and tell us all about it. If you want to subscribe to our monthly newsletter, the ability to do all that's down there in the description box. And then finally, and most importantly, let's remember that part of being the lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about here all the time, is to know what the law is in every situation, how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching and stay safe.